Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and this is day 19 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be rabbit, and today is going to be a shoulders and arms training routine. And the theme for today's workout is going to be assisted PNF stretching. So right now, I'm going to be demonstrating some more assisted PNF stretches. Now let's get started. And while we are resting, it is time to continue on with the PNF demonstration in sideline position. Now that we've done the TFL, next we are going to be focusing on the hip extensors. With the hip extensors, what we want to do is take them into hip flexion to stretch the extensors. And there's a couple different options with regard to this one, with regard to the hand positioning. The one that I find the most comfortable is you could take your hand and with your fingers pointing toward the head, you could stabilize at the sacrum. You don't want to stabilize with an underhand because then you could get a little bit funny with your middle finger. So you want to make sure that your hand is pointing up toward the head. That way you don't stick your fingers where they don't want it to be. But what we would do from this position right over here is with an underhand grip, we could go ahead and just take a hold of the proximal tibia and the medial condyle of the femur. And then what we would do from this position is we would just take them into hip flexion as much as possible. Once they feel a nice comfortable stretch, then we would instruct them inhale and push your leg down to the ground. And then they would inhale and they would go into extension. And then exhale, relax. And then we would take them deeper into the stretch. With a backhand, what we could do is we could rock the pelvis more. That way we could get a little bit more of retroversion of the pelvis. But we would do that. And then with regard to this one right over here, we could also change the angle. We could go up a little bit, so we could go into a little bit of abduction. Same thing. Inhale, bring your foot into me, and then they would inhale, bring the foot down. Find whatever cue works for the patient. Different cues are going to work for different people. So experiment with different cues to see what works. And then, so we would instruct them, inhale, push your foot down to the ground. They would inhale, push the foot down, and exhale, relax. And then on the exhale, we would take them deeper into the stretch. When we are focusing on the hip extensors, primarily we're going to be targeting the gluteus maximus muscle. When we are focusing on straight flexion without going into abduction, we're primarily going to be targeting the central fibers of the gluteus maximus. And then the more lateral that we start to get, so if we go up about 15 degrees, we're going to get a little bit into the lateral medial fibers. And then if we go up even higher, we're going to start getting more into the medial fibers. Then we're also going to be targeting the adductor magnus, the posterior fibers of the adductor magnus. And in this position, we're going to be getting the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and a little bit of the biceps femoris as well, but not quite as much, and specifically the long head of the biceps femoris. But depending on the angle, once again, that's going to shift the focus. So if we are just going straight up into flexion, primarily, we're going to be getting more of the semitendinosus, and we'll be getting a little bit of the semimembranosus and biceps femoris as well. Once we start going more into abduction, what we're going to do is we're going to shift the focus to the semimembranosus. If you recall, the semimembranosus is the most medial on the posterior leg. So because it's the most medial, the more into abduction that we go, the more we're going to start to emphasize the semimembranosus when we are stretching in this particular position. And then some other muscles that will be involved to a minimal extent, we're going to be getting a little bit of the gluteus medius and minimus, specifically the posterior fibers of the gluteus medius and minimus. And then we'll be getting a little bit of the piriformis, the quadratus femoris, and also a little bit of the obturator internus and externus, as well as the superior and inferior gemellus. But our rest period is up. Time for the 7th and final set. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.